welcome to Media Week. I'm Ingrid Willinge. Ahead on the show, the audience numbers from the first State of Origin clash, plus how magazines are getting advertisers to take notice, and we go inside the Gourmet Traveller Hotel of the Year Awards. But first, Southern Cross has named the former boss of 10 Network as its new chief executive. Grant Blackley held the top job at 10 until 2010 and has since been heading up restaurant group Keystone. Poised to take the helm at Southern Cross, stepping into the shoes of 6-year CEO Reece Holleran. Mr Blackley has been tapped to reinvigorate the broadcaster's sales strategy as well as its programming and talent management. He also holds a stake in talent agency RGM Artists. For more on that, standing in for our regular co-host James Manning today is regular guest on the channel, Chief Executive of Zenith Optimedia, Ian Perrin. Ian, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us today. So, news, of course, we've been waiting to hear who would take the helm of Southern Cross. Are you surprised by the move?
I'm not surprised at all, actually. I think Grant obviously brings an incredible amount of gravitas to the role. He knows a lot of people in the market. He knows how the business works. I think it's a very smart move on their behalf.
Yeah, so he's got a pretty good reputation already.
He's got a fantastic reputation. He did a wonderful job at 10 under difficult circumstances, and I think people were waiting for him to come back into the media market at some point, so I don't think anyone will be overly surprised. The relationship he has with some important advertisers, some important media companies will hold him in good stead, and I think you'll see a reinvigoration of their sales organisation, and you know, he's got a lot of work in front of him.
Yeah, okay. Well, another big media job going is, of course, the head of the new Endemol Shine Australia group. It seems that there's a lot of movements in the media at the moment in terms of their top positions. What do you make of that volatility?
I think that the industry is going through a fundamental shift from a linear analog way of thinking about communications to a digital, always-on type form of communications, and within all of that change means there needs to be leadership change as well. So especially since 2008 we've seen a huge amount of change in media leadership roles, and I think we'll continue to see that.
Speaking of some of the changes in the media, of course, we've had confirmation that News Corp will close its free commuter newspaper MX. Now, they've put the decision behind, I guess, changing habits of consumers. How do you read this today with this news?
I think we've realised for probably 6 to 9 months that there have been some concerns with the performance of MX. I think at the time when it was launched, it was a fantastic opportunity. It gave us advertisers the opportunity to reach consumers on their way home from work when they're about to go and consume or buy products.
It had a successful stint.
It had an incredibly successful stint, and they did a very good job from an editorial point of view. But the reality is, if you catch a ferry or ride on a bus, if you have a look around you now, you'll see everyone is pretty much looking at their mobile phone, and that's the way consumption has changed, and they've obviously got to evolve with that change.
The IAB released first quarter ad revenue this week, and video was the star performer. I guess not such a big surprise there, but it was up 79%. Where are the extra ad dollars coming from?
I don't know if they're extra ad dollars. I think the role of video is becoming fundamentally important to how advertisers see their overall mix. So you get the opportunity to demonstrate your products in an audio-visual capacity, but you also get the benefit of targetability that comes with digital. So rather than running your TV advertising in very expensive inventory on free-to-air networks, you can target very specific segments, often with a call to action at the end that people can click straight onto at the end of the video roll. That means it's an incredibly attractive proposition for not just large advertisers to augment their traditional media buy, but also with some advertisers who can't afford traditional TV to be able to afford to run audio-visual communications without a big budget.
Speaking of traditional TV, Dick Smith and David Jones are retailers which are offering the first set-top box that is Freeview Plus enabled. Of course, Seven in particular is pushing this innovation, but there seems little buzz from it yet in terms of consumers and advertisers. What do you put that down to?
I think the notion of consuming internet-enabled content has been around for a while. I think consumers have many different options on which to consume their content. The reality is I think they'll see the latest piece of technology as a convenience rather than a game changer. So yes, they'll probably use it, but I don't think it's going to fundamentally change their consumption habits.
Do you think agencies and advertisers think very carefully, though, for the impact of streaming on free TV, the likes of things like Netflix, which we've been talking a lot about on the show of late?
Absolutely. I think it's the biggest hot topic in our industry at the moment. I think what we've seen over time is a fragmentation of TV audiences. We used to have free-to-air networks, then we had subscription television, then we moved on to what were called the digital channels or the additional channels. Now we have streaming services, and every time that happens, there is a fragmentation of audiences, and the amount of money going into television is exactly the same, or it's been consistent for some time. So it means that all of these different channels are fighting even harder for ad dollars. So yes, we're watching it very closely.
So with that, do you expect those changes to continue for the next sort of 12 to 18 months? How quick will the transition be?
It's difficult to see how quick the transition will be. Initial numbers that we've seen is that the uptake from a consumer point of view has been incredibly strong, but we're not too sure whether that's due to the great upfront offers and the free offers that people are providing, or whether people are going to actually fundamentally change their behaviour in the long run. So I think in the next 6 months we'll have a far better understanding of how they have performed.
I want to talk a bit about magazines as well, because Elle magazine created a lot of discussion here and globally actually, with that subscriber cover, of course, with a supermodel on the front breastfeeding. And I just wonder how much this has to do with sort of also putting it out there for advertisers. There you can see the pictures. That's the subscriber issue, and then the issue that went to Stans. How much is this trying to sort of get advertisers to take notice?
I think the covers of magazines have been, somewhat doing this for a long time. They've tried to shock people into buying their magazines. So I don't think it's anything new. I think that advertisers will invariably go where audiences go. So if it improves the readership of the magazine, then sure, advertisers will support it.
All right, Ian, we'll check in with you in a short time. But first, like many media businesses, finding additional revenue streams and new ways to engage with customers and advertisers is, as we were just mentioning, critical. With that in mind, we focused on a number of recent magazine events, and this week we spoke with Bauer Media executives about Gourmet Traveller, and in particular its second Hotel of the Year awards and its 2015 Australian Hotel Guide. James Manning was at the awards event this week at the Langham Hotel in Sydney and caught up with Tony Kendall, Bauer Media's Director of Sales.
Gourmet Traveller is truly one of Australia's only homegrown luxury brands. There's probably not too many others I can think of that have the luxury and prestige of the brand status that Gourmet Traveller has, and part of its great strength is the events that it does, and this event particularly is a trade event essentially. So Nespresso partner with us, and they have the opportunity to interact with all of the general managers and managing directors of all of the great hotel chains that are around this great city and this great country.
I'm guessing you're spending your time at a lot of events these days, because it is key, isn't it, in getting that, engaging with your advertisers, involving them with the brand? Yeah,
look, and we've always done a lot of events, but we're certainly amping it up now. Live experience is a big part of what we do, and advertisers want to have that opportunity to have face-to-face dialogue with, in this case, the trade, or in the case of the weekend we've just had with the Home Food and Design Weekend, have that interaction with the public as well too. It's a great opportunity to showcase their brands.
So with Nespresso, for example, as part of their involvement, do they go across any other titles?
Yeah, look, Nespresso are a big advertiser across our group, across Bell and Gourmet Traveller and several other titles, including Women's Weekly.
Yeah, and that's a continued, one of your strengths, I guess, is it? Being able to offer advertisers lots of different demos and lots of different mass market and niches?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, a brand like Nestle and Nespresso have many, many products targeted to many different audiences, and obviously our diverse range of magazines give them the opportunity to speak to each of those audiences specifically.
We've spoken to you before on the show about niche is important for magazines. It's been one of the real success parts of the business. How's Gourmet Traveller faring?
It's going fantastically. The circulation's really strong, the readership's strong, advertising revenue's strong. In the digital space, its website and its iPad editions are two of our best performing digital properties as well too. So it really is truly a super brand for us.
We're seeing Bauer push a lot more into digital. Is it important that titles like Gourmet Traveller, which traditionally are holding up very well in print, but they also need to be active in the space?
Absolutely. And the iPad edition of Gourmet Traveller is, as I said, tremendously successful. But if you think about our luxury audiences, one of the things we're doing in the digital space is putting the audience of Gourmet Traveller, Cosmo and Elle and Harper's Bazaar together to create a really luxury peak audience as well too, which again advertisers want to have that conversation. They want to know they can come someplace they can have a conversation with a very upwardly mobile, affluent audience.
The key sectors, I guess, food and travel, as they offer to the readers,
Yep.
are they quite strong for advertising at the moment as well?
Yeah, they are. I mean, but Gourmet Travel is more. It's always been about lifestyle as well too. So many of the
So you get a lot more than just that.
Yes, there's a lot more than just food and travel. It's about lifestyle. It's about the audience, which is, as I said, it's a very high demographic, high household income audience, and that's hard to reach these days.
Give us a bit of an outlook for the year. It's not easy for anybody out there. Print seems to be getting beat up a fair bit.
We've had a tough start to the year, but May looks really strong. June looks strong as well too, so we've got a lot of foresight. So I think like it's bouncing back. Every market, every business is doing it tough, but we're seeing some good positive opportunities there.
Still a few briefs out there, people looking for print. It's not all about digital.
No, we get lots of briefs, but also too, the new digital network's allowing us to get lots of digital briefs, and people are more than happy to have print as a back-end part of a digital solution as well too.
Time for a quick break on Media Week. Coming up next, though, how the State of Origin's first clash rated and why live sport means so much to free to air. That's next.
It's cold now when your feet must be cut time.
Get $100 off one Coles supermarket shop if approved by May 31st.
100 is a lot, that's 100 off the shop.
Apply today.
Coles Mastercard.
Down here, there's a lot to take care of. There's the meetings, the deadlines, the phone call you promised your mother, your gym bag full of wishful thinking, and your 2-hour park in a 1-hour space. But up here, everything's taken care of.
Shiraz or Riesling, sir?
Especially you.
Shiraz, please.
With food, checked baggage, and entertainment now complimentary on Virgin Australia domestic flights.
What we need is a much broader range with far less options, and if we can have a succession plan for the future.
Because I'm focusing on today. The fact is, our opportunity is China. It's definitely Japan.
Undoubtedly the next suburb, because of
Cash flow, getting money in ASAP, and then
getting bigger and much smaller and...
borrowing the money to expand online. I feel like our world's full of possibilities.
Every business has its own unique opportunities. Talk to ANZ, the bank that can help your business take the next step your way.
It's a whole new world around here.
This year, you can watch every single episode in one hit. Same day as the US.
You just said that, my nipples got like super hard. Sounds kind of crazy.
Orange is the New Black Season 3 begins Friday, June 12 on Showcase. For your dose of drama express from the US and the Drama Pack.
A renewed push on marriage equality for same-sex couples. Some reckon Parliament already has the numbers for a yes result if Tony Abbott allows a conscience vote. But could going too early set back the cause? Saturday Agenda, Sky News Live.
Welcome back. Well, we just heard from Bauer Media's Director of Sales at the Gourmet Traveller Hotel of the Year Awards. James Manning also spoke with Anthea Lucas, Gourmet Traveller Editor, on why sponsors and events are so important to the magazine.
We've had the Travel Awards for the last 7 years before the Hotel Guide, and we just felt it was really important for Gourmet Traveller to embrace or celebrate our travel, the travel offer that we have. It's a really important editorial offer, editorial pillar, I should say, of the magazine. And we've done that for 30 odd years with the Restaurant Guide Award. So this is our way of saying, hey, travel industry, we love you, and this is our way of celebrating what they do.
And working with the sponsors is very critical for editors these days. Nespresso is the major sponsor here tonight. Just tell us a bit about working with them.
We couldn't do what we do without Nespresso. As we like to say, as reviews don't themselves, room rates don't pay for themselves either, and quite frankly, without the support of Nespresso, this guide would not exist. Nespresso have been with us for 9 years with the Travel Awards that predated the hotel guide, and they're just so supportive. They, you know, they're in hotels. They're big supporters of the travel industry, and like I said, we couldn't produce the editorial products we produce without them. So we're very thankful to have them on board, and they're great friends of Gourmet Traveller.
Now, I guess the guide is a big incentive for people to buy the actual magazine. Does it have a digital life as well?
Yeah, it does. It lives on our iPad edition, which is great. So yeah, on both, you know, we like to think of Gourmet as, you know, a multi-platform brand, and we publish on various, you know, we don't even think about whether we're publishing on digital or in print. They both exist, you know, side by side. So it does, yeah, it lives both in digital format and in print.
Now, you mentioned the restaurant awards. So what are the bigger key issues, if you like, of the year? So the hotel guide, the restaurant awards. Do you do anything else?
Yeah. So the restaurant awards are in our September issue with the awards themselves in August, mid-August. And then our other big issues would be Christmas. I mean, everyone loves to cook at Christmas, obviously. Our French and Italian issues are really popular. Our French issue is in October. Our Italian issue is in March. And then our other big issue would be our November issue, which is all about celebrating the party season. So, yeah.
What's the editorial mix between food and travel? How do you keep the balance, and does it change much over the years?
Yeah, it does change. I mean, predominantly, well, the large part of the magazine is devoted to food, but travel has becoming an increasingly more important editorial offer for us, and it's just something that I think is fun and our readers really respond to. 40% of our readers are male, which is really interesting, you know, when you look at maybe perhaps some of the other food titles, and I would venture to say that's because of our travel offer, though a lot of men like to cook, obviously. But I think, you know, travel is what sets us apart. We cover travel, we invest in travel coverage, I think, in a way that no other Australian publisher does. We spend a lot of money making sure that we have the best writers, the best photographers, the best destinations covered in our magazine, and I think that's a really important part of the market that we continue to grow, and we are doing that incrementally every year.
There's the celebrity chef phenomenon. It's been around for a while now. You get some good writers with some big name bylines, but has it affected you much?
Yeah, I like to say that, you know, food is the new fashion. I mean, I think that, you know, food has a place in popular culture now that it never has before, and when we're a product that's, you know, all about food and all about celebrating food, that is a great place to be in the media landscape. And I definitely think that, you know, while let's better say the viewer of My Kitchen Rules or MasterChef may not be intimately familiar with Gourmet Traveller, that maybe that they might, you know, buy into that. I mean, let's face it, no one knew who Peter Gilmore or Snow Egg was, you know, more than 3 years ago. So I think we're really well placed to take advantage of that.
Let's just finish with a couple of tips for our viewers, if you like. The hotels, what city's got the biggest spread of best hotels, in Melbourne, Sydney or somewhere else?
Oh, well, there's so many great hotels all over Australia. I would say that the really interesting phenomenon that we noticed in this year's guide was that Brisbane is like booming, and there's lots of new hotels there, whether you're talking about Next or Trip or Gambaro or the new Inchcombe. Lots of great new products coming online in Brisbane. Canberra, we still love Hotel. It's such a great product. The Langham here in Sydney is incredible. And there's lots of new things happening in Melbourne, and there's always, you know, Melbourne has those great establishment hotels like Crown and the Westin, and yeah, so, you know, check in. It's a great time to be enjoying hotels in Australia.
And finally, travel hotspots. So is it the same familiar place? Is there anything new on the horizon there?
Oh, look, I think there's, you know, there's lots. It depends sort of what you're interested in. I think, you know, in Australia, I think Canberra and Hobart and even Adelaide are really interesting at the moment. There's lots of great food happening in Adelaide. Our readers love the classics like Rome, and we could never write enough about Rome or Paris, really. I mean, Southeast Asia, there's always lots of new products coming online. And I think Africa is something that's just, you know, I think we're starting to acknowledge, I think, you know, Australians are great travellers, and I think they've always travelled to Africa, but I think in a way Africa seems to be more accessible to us now, so I think that's space to watch.
Well, Macquarie Capital has been appointed to handle the Australian Football League's $1.8 billion broadcast rights. Fairfax reporting Macquarie will work with the AFL to negotiate with several broadcasters, including 7, 9, 10 and Foxtel. It's believed the AFL has told the networks it's looking to sign a deal for $1.75 billion over a 5-year period. For more on that, we're joined by Evan Lucas from IG. Evan, quite a win for Macquarie, this one.
Yeah, it is, and it just goes hand in hand with the high-profile premium sort of corporate negotiations that Macquarie continues to get. I know obviously it is outside the media space, but it just shows you why they are becoming an absolute bright spot in the banking space with regards to where the share market's at. It's up 38% year to date. I think the other interesting thing around the deal is the other side, and looking at what will now happen around that deal. It would be an historic deal, not just for the AFL, but in terms of sport in general in this country. It would look at really ramping up that presence we currently hear, listening to 7 West Media, listening to 9, 8 to 10, about getting your hands on sport and the advertisement dollars that come with that. There is already signs that all those three, including Foxtel as well, and News Corp to some extent, are looking to cut costs around where they can to actually get ready to bid up for the AFL and those rights. So although they want 1.8, it may even turn into a really strong bidding war and could go high still. That, I think, is quite an interesting prospect, because it is the one space that is still very, very lucrative and EPS accretive.
Speaking of cutting costs, there's news today that Fairfax is preparing to retrench more than 100 workers at its New Zealand operations. What's behind that?
Yeah, and this gets back to what we've been seeing. So TVNZ looks like losing up to 100 staff. There may be some new positions created, but it just goes back in line with the idea at the moment that that part of their business is not firing. They are looking to basically see wherever they are losing money that they're going to have to cut costs, and they have put down from double-digit to 7, but that means they're still in a 7% margin that they can't afford to do. The New Zealand business has been sort of umming and ahhing in terms of where it's at. It is certainly flatlining in terms of movement, and their TV arm, which is some part that you would expect actually to do quite well, has been one of their underperforming parts of their whole portfolio. So that's why it is there. They are still looking to cut costs and get themselves back onto a flat level, flat playing field, and that's why New Zealand is under the hammer right now.
All right, Evan Lucas, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Evan from IG there. Back to our guest host today, Ian Perrin, of course, from Zenith Optomedia in the studio. Ian, you know, talking about the AFL rights, it just brings you, I guess, to the importance of just how much sport means to television and the deals there to advertisers as well. We had obviously the first State of Origin clash held this week. Now, we pulled an audience of 2.432 million viewers. That's on average. That's down slightly on last year, though. Last year it was 2.487 for Game 1 audience, so it's slightly lower than last year. What do you make of that?
I don't think I make an awful lot of the 8%. I think it is decline in audience. I think they tend to go up and down over years. So I still think it's a very strong result for Channel 9. They'll be very pleased with that. In terms of sports rights, it's not just the ability to aggregate audiences at scale, but it's an important play for the networks in terms of promoting some of their shows for the remainder of the year. So I think they'll be really happy with that performance.
Well, and advertisers love it, right?
Advertisers absolutely love it.
Live sport.
Live sport is fantastically good in order to reach people very quickly. The real value is not just the people who regularly watch TV, but what you find is a lot of light TV viewers watch live sports, and certainly with something like State of Origin, they turn out in droves. There's probably a lot of unreported audience who are watching. They're highly engaged programming because they, you know, rather than sitting on their couch and not being involved in the programming. So it's very much lean forward type engagement. So it's a great environment for many of our brands.
Is sport where the value is for free to air going forward, do you think?
I think there's probably 3 areas that free to air now focus on. The first is news, and that's probably less relevant than it used to be. And the next 2 are reality and sport. So literally they're becoming 2-trick ponies with regards to content, focused, you know, on getting the very best reality TV format, and then obviously what becomes critically important is who gets the best sports rights.
Interesting you mentioned news there, because we're just taking a look at the ratings now for week 21 for free to air kicking it off, and news actually takes the top spot. There it is, 7 News Sunday, and you've got 9 News in there as well. So they are still taking top spots in the ratings.
They're still doing incredibly well, and I think that's the time when people aggregate around the shows. But I think increasingly people are getting their news from other sources. So as a trend globally, we're seeing fewer people watching news on free-to-air television, and I'm sure the trend will happen here in Australia.
Catching Milat, that 7 special as well, coming in second spot. And then, of course, MasterChef, which actually, if we turn the page, we'll see MasterChef takes a lot of the rest of the top 10. There you can see it takes 8, 9 and 10 spot. Let's take a look now at the subscription television ratings for week 21. This is the top 5 sports. So obviously AFL and NRL at this time of the year taking those top 5 spots.
Absolutely. I think, you know, that's what would be expected. I think on the previous page, what probably wasn't expected was the incredibly strong performance of MasterChef. That's a show that's been around for a long time. 10 have been able to revitalise it, and that's a fantastic result for Channel 10.
All right, moving on and taking a look at the top 5 non-sport on subscription television. Game of Thrones, no surprises there to take the top spot. Also got the Real Housewives in there and Wentworth as well. Just returning to Ian Perrin as well, for one more question on basically SBS, because we've been hearing a lot about Eurovision. It's had a lot of publicity in the last couple of weeks in particular. Drew some big audiences for SBS. Do you have many clients who use SBS at the moment, and do you have any thoughts on whether they should be able to move some of their daytime ad minutes into prime time?
Well, first off, I must say that SBS are one of our clients. I must declare that. I think that, you know, before they were a client, we used to use them a fair deal. I mentioned earlier about the importance of reaching very light TV viewers, and SBS does an excellent of that. It also gives us the opportunity to profile very specific audiences, so it's very helpful from that point of view. With regards to moving more of their ad dollars or their ad opportunities into prime time, I think that's a really good thing for advertisers. I think it's good for them, so I'm all for that.
All right, and we'll have to leave it there, but a big thank you to our guest host today, Ian Perrin, Chief Executive of Zenith Opta Media, in the studio with us. And that is all we have time for on this edition of Media Week. Thanks for joining us.